Hi and Assalamualaikum. We are going to present Assessing Student Learning. I'm Elieanie Binti Ibrahim and my friend Fatin Marlia Binti Maulana and also Nuraida Safi Binti Suhaini. Okay, I will start with the objectives of this study. Objective of this study is to investigate the methods used by the teacher in the process of studying student abilities. This is how the teachers use the method to find their student ability during the teaching and learning process. Next is to investigate the effectiveness of a study conducted by each teacher on the skills or performance of the student. It shows how the teachers use their teaching method. Is it effective or not to make their student understand what are they teaching. Okay, next is to identify whether the level of study conducted on the student has a positive or negative impact on the school. Okay, I will explain introduction. The school-based assessment and evaluation system conducted by a subject teachers to assess and evaluate the student's cognitive, which is intellectual, affective, emotional and spiritual, and a psychomotor, physical aspect in line with Malaysia's national philosophy of education and standard-based school curriculum. Definition for the assessment is the progress towards the outcomes by both teachers and learner as continually during the learning process in the school. Evaluation is the achievement from the outcomes for the purpose of judging it and determining its value. As an example for the assessment is like after the teacher finishing each topic, and the example for the evaluation is like moment by moment, semester by semester, maybe throughout the tests given and the quizzes. Okay, next is the theory. Assessment for learning is closely associated with the socio-constructivist theories of learning. Mental models and assumptions that the learner uses to understand a subject are complex and constructed from previous experiences and interaction with people. These need to be understood by teachers and learners and refined and developed in the process of education. This helps in this process by making learning visible. It helps learners understand more accurately the nature of the material they are learning, what constitutes an excellence, and themselves as learners.
My name is Fatin Marlia. Okay, I would like to explain the terms of assessment for learning. So there are 4 terms of assessment for learning. The first one is formative assessment. Second one is summative assessment, school-based assessment, and followed by diagnostic assessment. For the formative assessment, this term was introduced earlier in the 1916 by the Michael Sullivan. These terms is to contrast with the summative assessment and convey that assessment is also carried out during learning to form students' learning and look forward to what they will learn. Okay, for the summative assessment, the summative assessment means the same as assessment of learning. Summative assessment sums up the learning of students at the ends of periods of learning. For example, once the school term or a course has finished. As it sums up what the student have achieved, it looks back and indicates what the student have learned, sometimes measured against clearly defined standards. Some summative assessment is high stakes, for example when used for admission purposes. However, summative assessment can also be used formatively if it provides feedback to inform teaching and learning. Okay, for other 2 terms of assessment for learning, which are school-based assessment and diagnostic assessment. For school-based assessment, it usually refers to parts of a summative assessment that are initially carried out by teachers. School-based assessment is usually work, for example like science practicals, geography fieldwork, that marked by teachers in the school, which is then externally moderated by examiners to help ensure reliability and added to other results obtained in external exams. For the diagnostic assessment usually refers to assessment that identifies what the learners already knows and is capable of at the beginning of a course to establish a starting point. The focus is often on identifying difficulties that the learner might have so as to help identify appropriate teaching and learning strategies. For criteria of evaluations, there are 2 classifications. The first classification divided by 2, initial and continuing evaluation. Initial evaluation relies at the beginning of a training or learning sequence, while continued evaluation is always performed over the entire development of training process. For the second classification, there are three types of evaluation, which are process, product, and system evaluation. For the process evaluation, always when the training or teaching process and didactic damage itself is evaluated. Product evaluation is when the final product of the training itself or teaching process, like the training, student, people, is evaluated. And the last one, system evaluation, when the training system and its subcomponents are evaluated.
My name is Aida. For the principal assessment, there are 9 principles of assessment. Principle 1. Assessment should be valid to ensure that assessment tasks and associated criteria effectively measure student attainment. Principle 2. Assessment should be reliable and consistent for the setting, marking, grading, and moderation of assignments. Principle 3. Information about assessment should be explicit, accessible, and transparent. Principle 4. Assessment should be inclusive and equitable to ensure that tasks and procedures do not disadvantage any group or individual. For the Principle 5, assessment should be an integral part of program design and should relate directly to the program aims and learning outcome. Principle 6. The amount of assessed work should be manageable without overloading staff and students. Principle 7. Formative and summative assessment should be included in each program to ensure that the purpose of assessment are adequately addressed. Principle 8. Timely feedback that promotes learning and facilitates improvement should be an integral part of the assessment process. And the last one, Principle 9. Staff development policy and strategy should include assessment to undertake their roles and responsibility. Okay, from the interview session, there are many ways to ensure the evaluation process are effective. First, the teacher do the Q&A session with the student during or after the lesson. Then, the teacher asks for the student to do the presentation about the certain topic. After that, the teacher must make sure all the students give cooperation during teaching process, and the student can participate actively in practical activities. Lastly, the students are well behavior during the teaching process. For the conclusion, both assessment and evaluation is very important to the students for their learning process in the school. Through our survey, we can see that most of the teachers are well aware with the assessment and evaluation in their teaching process because it will lead them to measure their student ability in learning as the effectiveness their teaching method. Through this way, teacher will find out where is the lack and they will try to assist their students to get a better grade for their future and also improving their teaching method approach.